Paul Charchian and I ventured to Mike Zimmer's hotel room yesterday and sat down and chatted with the coach about this time of the season. Beginning with Mike, what do you pull from the combine and thoroughly enjoy this part of the offseason?
I think the biggest thing is starting to get to know the players a little bit, watch them work out. That part is the best. The interviews sometimes are just, they're all rehearsed, and so you don't get a whole lot out of it. But you get a chance to see a lot of the players up close and personal and talk to them a little bit.
Now, with those private interviews here in Indy, do they all run together? And you mentioned via agents or preparation that they generally know what to say, the players. Conversely, do you or do the teams come in with ways to get around that to try to get what you want?
Well, you always try to do that a little bit. You try to get them on the board some, ask them questions that they may not be as prepared for, football questions. Find out a little bit about their background and different things. But it's really when they get into the stadium and start doing the drills.
When you say on the board, Coach, you mean whiteboard, right? We're drawing X's and O's and stuff, right? And so what do you ask a player to do, when he's up at the board?
Well, there's different things. Sometimes it's like if you're talking to a linebacker, put up the front, put up the coverage, run one of the plays that you've had run against you and how they blocked it.
Yeah.
And what your fit is supposed to be. What is your primary responsibility in coverage? A lot of things like that.
So does that mean linebacker at 25? Was that a tell?
Never know around here, do you?
Is that so? They can only prepare for so many of those. I mean, you can give any scenario you want, so they can't be fully prepared. Is that almost like an intelligence test or a football intelligence test on the fly right there?
Yeah, what you're trying to do is get them to see if they understand more about the game of football than just their one position. So that's why you'll ask them, right up where your defensive end lines up and what's his responsibility in this, even though he doesn't play defensive end.
Yeah.
Now with cornerback Chris Boyd into his second year, do you think Chris has a chance, granted as a corner and Anthony Harris is a safety? Do you think Chris can kind of improve that way? Does he have the opportunity and kind of go through it the way Anthony did with special teams, got good there, and eventually gets good on the field in games?
Well, that's what we're hoping. Typically, the guys that play really well on special teams eventually end up being good players, position players, and I do think Chris improved a lot. He had some penalties on special teams early in the year, got a lot better as it went. He's got the talent and ability, how fast he can pick up the techniques and the learning and everything that he has to do as we continue to move forward, where these young guys, a lot of times what they're doing is thinking about how they're playing and not just playing. You'd like them to go out there and just play the game and be able to react and think quickly.
Now, when it comes to the first round pick for you guys, and we're 2 months from that, whatever, but say there is a corner that you'll have at 25. Cool. You're going to take best player available that helps you probably right now. But with the way you coach corners and how well respected you are with that, and Dom Capers, many, think of him 3-4 pressures, former head coach, but there's a lot of defensive backs equity in there with him too. Does that help you deeper in the draft find corners that you think, maybe under the radar and could help now?
Well, I think where it helps most, that part will, because Dom's looked at so many guys and I obviously have looked at a lot of guys. I think that part can help identifying some of the players down the road. But I think the bigger factor will be when we get them the technique and making sure that they understand everything that we're asking them to do footwork wise, hand placements, splits, stems, all kinds of different things.
Coach, while we're talking about that position, a lot of the people that are listening now or watching, there's a lot of concern, consternation about that position. There's the assumption there's going to be a lot of turnover at cornerback. What are your thoughts about the cornerback position for this coming season and any changes that there may be?
Well, I think there's every year there's going to be change at some places. So we're not as concerned, I guess, as everybody else. I've had all different kinds of corners play for me throughout my career, and a lot of times you'll change schemes to help protect guys. You'll use more double coverage than you would single coverage, different things. So once we figure out who everyone's going to be, then we'll take care of the rest. But there's still a lot of time, before the draft and free agency, and we'll figure it out.
Mike Zimmer, 9 to noon, and Vikings.com from Indianapolis. The drills here, the interviews here, yes, they matter. I would imagine for you, the tape from what they did in college games, that matters the most, right?
Right, much more. The only thing is you like to see the players move, with your own eyes. You like to see them at a workout, or whether it's here or at their schools. But what kind of player they are on tape is really what you're looking to find.
What are some of the biggest differences, whether they are high-end players or seventh-round picks, from playing cornerback in college compared to the NFL?
Well, the first thing is they're typically going against a lot better players. They're typically not facing as many good quarterbacks, and the rules are quite different for them as far as they can contact them anywhere down the field. Pass interference is a 15-yard penalty in college. So a lot of different things there. And then a lot of times it's the scheme in the NFL is different too. So it does take a while. It typically, some guys can come in and play right away, and some guys takes a little bit of time.
You mentioned Dom Capers. You've had a lot of turnover in your coaching staff this offseason, and some of it's because your coach has been really good. They go off, get hired, and become head coaches. What are your thoughts on all the change for this year and having to spend many of your Januaries sorting through a new coaching staff?
Yeah, that's an unfortunate part of
winning.
Of the business. You like to just get away for couple weeks and relax, and instead you're trying to hire coaches. I really believe that I think we put a proposal in for this that no coach should be hired until after the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
so that would
make
everything all the same, and all the equity the same as far as looking for guys, because some teams hire a coach and then they're already working on getting guys hired 3 weeks before the season's over. So I think that would be a good rule, but it's just something that you deal with every year. I'm excited about the coaching staff. I think the changes that happened will all work out just fine. We've got I've been impressed sitting in the meetings with them up until this point, and so we'll be excited, ready to go, and we'll get everybody on the same page.
To that point, how important was it to have the continuity of keeping Gary Kubiak and keeping that system that he was such a big part of last season to this year, not having to start over again completely at offensive coordinator?
Yeah, I think that was huge. Gary's a great guy, great football coach, and he does a great job with the players, teaching them, get them to understand what we're trying to do on specific plays, specific alignments, and I think he was a great influence on him being here was outstanding, and for us to be able to really say the same system is going to be in place for another year, it's going to help our players, because we've had different coaches in there and different systems and different play calls and alignments and every other thing.
And for Kirk, he had a different system, not only here in Minnesota, but his prior 2 years in Washington as well. So this will be, I think, the first time in 5 years that he's going to be working in the same system in consecutive years, and that's got to be helpful. Yeah,
and Kirk had a great year last year. Yeah, I thought he played very well, probably the best year he's had since he's been in professional football. For him to be able to instead of learning a new system, to be able to perfect the system now, I think is going to help him to continue to grow.
A couple of guys for you last year, Drew Samia and Ole Udoh, a couple of rookies. You didn't play until the end of the season. Big off seasons for them. Certainly not filling out a depth chart now, but the NFL is the land of opportunity, and now they've seen it for a full year.
Yeah, both those two guys really are talented guys. Ole is a big athletic guy that gets better and better all the time, and him going against Everson and Daniil and those guys going against him in practice, I think helps him get better. And Drew is a mauler type of player who will be is going to be physical, and sometimes that gets in his way a little bit, that he's too physical. He needs to just go in there and reserve some of his hostile mentality.
Time for two more.
Charge.
While we're talking offensive line, it's year 2 for the zone blocking scheme, and this was a major redesign of the line. Is it safe to feel like year 2 will be a little bit smoother for this line, and we can see improvements even from the same people just in having another year of trying to learn this new scheme?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with not just the scheme, but the players understanding exactly what they're looking for now. Excuse me, and then having guys like Kirk being able to help with the same system. I think the whole thing will be better. There's things we all have to work on, obviously. But Kirk helped a lot in the passing game because he got the ball out of his hands quickly. We have to get better at pass protection. And for the most part, we did a nice job in the running game. There was a couple games that we didn't run the ball effectively enough, and so we're going to have to figure out ways to handle that better than we did, because we have to be able to run the ball, and our play action and our throwing game comes off of that.
Yeah, and when we saw Kirk be, I think, at his most successful, like that month of October when he was the NFL's Offensive Player of the Month or NFC Offensive Player of the Month, the running game was also really clicking at that time as well. And, those two feed off each other, right?
Yeah, they definitely feed off each other. You start getting guys working more lateral than playing up the field.
Yeah.
And so... but there was a couple games that we have to get better in those situations too, and so those are all things that we're going to work on this offseason. Try to get guys to get a little bit better, each and every one of them get a little bit better, and then collectively we get better as a group.
Hey, to get a suite like this with a beautiful view, do you have to beat the Saints in the playoffs? I mean, if you didn't, would you have been like in a regular room 3 floors down?
I think it's whatever's available.